Let's talk quickly about some of the other issues, though, that we think will be centerpieces of this race. One of them, of course, is population growth. Mayor Mike Duggan was very proud last year when finally Detroit reversed, or at least appears to have reversed, the trend of depopulation, first increase reported since the late 1950s, I believe. I'm not a fan of this issue at all. I think it distracts people from some of the things that we've got to deal with, regardless of how many people are here. And I think it doesn't solve a ton of problems, even if we do get more. And we're so far under some of the benchmarks population-wise that would make a difference. When you're talking about 400,000 people short of 1 million, where you get 300,000 or 400,000 people to live in Detroit. When the mayor first said that he wanted to be judged by the growth of population, I was angry with him. I told him I thought it was a terrible error. I thought not just a strategic error, but a substantive error. But here we are, 12 years later, and it at least appears to be happening. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, it's hard to say that we've really reversed that trend, because the 1 year increase that we saw was basically enough people to fill a high school gymnasium, right? So, and I think also this idea of let's bring new people to Detroit elevates some tension among long-term residents who feel like, again, this growth is not benefiting them. So
it's not for them.
Who's going to get who are we catering to move into the city, and how does that affect people who are already here? Because, we have folks leaving the city and we have folks coming in. And I think it balanced out to the point where we had slightly more people coming in than we're losing, but we're still losing population as well. We got an aging population. A lot of our young people are leaving this area. They don't feel like there's opportunities for them. They don't feel like they have the ability to get jobs or buy houses or have the kind of lifestyle that they would like. And, Detroit being Michigan's really only, major urban center. Sorry, Grand Rapids don't count. I think this is going to be an important place for the state's population growth strategy moving on. And how does that affect some of the kind of block by block issues? Rogelio Landon has kind of an interesting idea of how to get us to 1 million people. He wants to annex surrounding suburban communities and add to the geography of Detroit. And so if you're in Hazel Park, you're now a Detroit resident under this plan, things like that. So I don't know how realistic that is, right?
And I'm going to have to go back and do more of my sort of homework on this, but I believe that part of the reason Detroit stopped growing in the first place was that the law changed in terms of how you can annex, because Detroit did grow for a long time by just swallowing up communities around it. That stopped around the turn of the century, the turn of the last century, I should say, 1900s, early 1900s. That's about the time that the Home Rule Cities Act was crafted and put into place. And I think that makes it much, much harder to take over other cities. It's an interesting idea, though, in that it raises the question of, well, if you could pull in other cities in their entire populations, would that solve some of our problems? Or would it create more problems that the city can't solve for the people who already live here?
Yeah, that's a complicated one. We're gonna dive more into whether that's a good idea or not. But it's it's got a lot of people talking when he first put it forward. Yeah. But why is it important for us to grow population? I mean, part of it is it unlocks more resources for the city.
Yeah.
You have more people living here. They're paying property taxes. If they live in a home, they have a job here. They're paying income taxes, which is now a larger share of the city's revenue. So it's important. I mean, signifiers of the health of the city, are things like the murder rate, things like, whether the population is growing or shrinking.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important symbolically as well that it shows Detroit is moving in the right direction. But it's more important because it helps bring more resources to the city budget that can then be used, hopefully, to benefit residents. And we're losing a lot of our kind of middle class in the city. We're losing a lot of our middle professionals who are trying to start families, and they move out of the city to do that because they feel like the education opportunities are better. There's more safety and security in the neighborhood, and it's cheaper, frankly, to live in the suburbs in a lot of cases, with the highest property tax rate in the region. And candidates have been talking about that as well. Mary Sheffield has talked about bringing down the property tax burden that makes it so difficult for many people to live here, and maybe replacing some of that revenue with an entertainment tax. Yeah. Another, potentially controversial idea, but one that has people talking.
Yeah.
So, And Michigan, just in general, has been bleeding residents for such a long time. And it's kind of an unsustainable situation because as the state loses population, we also lose representation in Congress. We have a diminishment of our political power. It has, really big implications.